Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Estate with Ryan. So excited to be with you on a Saturday, talking our favorite topic, real estate in the East Tennessee housing market. Always a busy weekend, and I hope you're having an amazing start to your weekend. And thank you for taking your time to listen to Real Estate with Ryan. We really appreciate it. Every Saturday, you can find Real Estate with Ryan on our favorite partners, News Talk 98.7 at 1 o'clock. And, of course, on Talk Radio 92.3 FM, AM 760 at 11 a.m. Also find us streaming on their social channel on their Facebook. So in case you didn't get enough of me there, you can catch me on Facebook. So that and a lot of social media channels. We got X, Instagram, YouTube. I can't even keep up with all of it. iTunes, Google, you name it. We've got you there for the real estate rerun. So important. Real estate, you see the news, what's going on in the housing market, CNBC, CNN, Fox, whatever. Whatever your channel is, they've got different information of the housing market. What's going on? Is it doom and gloom? Well, we bring you Real Estate with Ryan. What's going on in East Tennessee housing market? What's going on with buyers, sellers, how we're now gearing into the second half of the year. It's hard to announce that it's, if you didn't announce it, but I announced it. I just had a birthday. So June's here, birthday, getting older. That's always tough. And my kids made it tough on me, you know. We won't mention age. We'll keep that alone. But it's like, is this how the year's going? But it's all good. And so hope you have an amazing time. And we've got a good show and topic for you. But as always, we won't talk about more birthdays, but we'll talk about some sales, pendings, new listing, what's going on in the housing market. We got a new listing out on Hollyfield Drive and on Jacksboro, 310 Hollyfield Drive in Jacksboro. Brand new listing, Rancher. Beautiful layout. Make sure you check that property out. New listing coming next week, 832 Resort Way in Gatlinburg. It is priced to sell, does good rental. Guys are buying a lake house, buying something on the water a little closer. Indiana. Gave me a little hard time about Indiana football, and I had my UT shirt on, and hey, I said, I got a good program, you know, so we have orange around here, though. It's funny that we had a good time with them. And some great clients here coming up on Forest Loop Way in Gatlinburg, pending in less than 2 weeks. So 248 Red Hill Road in Andersonville, great property there, went under contract. 262 Twilight Boulevard, Sharps Chapel, under contract. And congrats to our great seller at 425 Autumn Lane in Gatlinburg, closed there. So a lot going on, a lot of emotions. It was an emotional week too, you know. So we had one of our sellers where it's tough, you know. You lost a spouse during the listing, then she lost a brother, and so a lot of things going on. Emotionals are, you know, a lot of emotions going on. You know, it's hard to get that closure, but it was important. You know, we talk about that, just getting that chapter closed, and so it's a tough week. Always when you're dealing real estate, we talk about stressful, but just some of the emotions that get involved into the buying and selling. So it's tough. It's tough. So, but we're super glad that we could get that done for them and get her moving on and restart a new chapter. And so we're excited for that. We're talking about today, we got two things. And the first, so we're going to talk about why more people are buying smaller homes, and it's paying off for today's market. And then we're talking in the second half, maybe into the first half, talking about the hidden cost of waiting too long. We see that so much. We talk about that decision and how that's factoring into the housing market, how it's relevant today in today's housing market. Waiting too long, all those things kind of come into play. So I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, if you're tuning into one of these great stations that listen to Real Estate with Ryan, if we can be of any help, if you're buying, selling, relocating, brand new state. Had some great people that we just showed in Mallard Bay today from North Carolina, Charlotte. So we're getting a lot of people coming in, a lot of people relocating. It's that time of the year. So we got properties up in the Smokies where we're selling properties, and they've sold another property in another state, which is more than likely an investment property. And so they're doing a 1031. So we're seeing that in the Gatlinburg and Sevier market picking up. The Knoxville housing market right here, West Knoxville and surrounding counties, people are now coming in. School is officially over. And so we've got to get kiddos situated, close. And so these next 90 days are going to be crucial for the Knoxville housing market and surrounding counties, right? So people will be buying and selling regardless of what the interest rates and where we're at. I think that's what we'll see moving forward. We've seen a big pickup this week. Just put 3 or 4 under contract in a short period of time. And so I think that's any indication of what June is going to be. Will be one of those things where the cost of waiting too long people are realizing I just can't wait any longer, Ryan. Kiddos are here. One today, they're 10 and 16. And another one's a sophomore at UT. And it's just no more time to wait. So they have to get their home sold in Charlotte, come here. So excited about that. So let's talk about why more home buyers are buying smaller, and now it's paying off. Today's housing market, you started with a specific idea of a image of a budget and a time. And then the more you shop and look at homes, just to find out that what you pictured is just out of range. Everything has got so expensive. But don't let that discourage you. In today's housing market, we're seeing across the country a lot of builders falling into that plan. So a lot of the homes that are being built, they're not building the larger homes. Most builders focus on types of homes that consumers are wanting. And what we're seeing now, that more specifically, is homes that have a lower square footage but more amenities, and maybe in an HOA. Maybe different some of the things that communities, walking trails. Fair gets big for that. Had clients that relocated just for the communities, schools, and some of the things that go along with some of the neighborhoods that you get. So be excited about some of the options that you have in this price. And another big thing with the smaller homes, just to think about, is that a lot of people are looking at condos, townhouses, attached homes. You know, a lot of the builders are crunching the numbers and looking in the housing market what they're building. Perfect example, right there in Hardin Valley. We've got some one-level, I'd say probably about 2,000, 2,300 square feet, good floor plans, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's got a nice 2-car garage, all brick, low maintenance, small little community, and they're going like hotcakes. You know, so that's more what you're seeing that the builders are building, and it's kind of a correlation of what the buyers are telling the builders, kind of what the market's dictating. You know, the number of condos sold last year up 2.7% from a month ago, and also a year over year, according to the National Association of Realtors. In addition to favoring smaller plans, more consumers are showing a willingness for the attached homes. You know, it used to be with condos as a whole, wasn't long, maybe 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 years ago, they were harder sales. You know, we had a senior community. We have certain age groups I would say age groups, but certain demographics that would want condos. But now, younger generations, other areas where they don't want the maintenance and all the upkeep of what's going on. You know, a lot of our seniors are coming from our 2 stories or a lot of steps, but we're seeing younger generations. I don't know if it's a generation X or Z, and I can't keep all track of those, but, you know, I'd say probably that 35 to 55 range, we're seeing them open up into the marketplace. So that's really big that a condo or a condo complex has a lot more amenities that trade into square footage. So most people work from home, but a lot of these condos, not only they fit their budget or smaller homes, you have that dedicated office. Well, they have the HOA, have a co-working space, might work out. Got a private gym, don't have to have a private gym in your home. That's kind of neat. You got a shared gym, but some of these HOAs, you go into the community gym, there's nobody in there. So it's almost like your private gym. And then you have kind of more of a walking paths. You've got the dogs and everything that goes involved with that. So you have the private retreat. You can just walk them. It's very peaceful, safe. So that's what we're seeing in the budget. Affordability is probably the number one factor in today's housing market, but it's something that we're seeing condo sales and attached homes rise. Let's talk about some of these. We'll transition our segment here and then go into second half of real estate with Ryan. We'll talk about the cost of waiting too long to make a decision. And that's probably, we've touched on this before in some other aspects of the show, but it's not inventory that's an issue. You know, it's not really, is it the prices? I think prices have a lot to do with what's going on in the housing market, but the hidden cost of moving or making that decision is just waiting too long. You know, we see it all the time that you have a home to sell, wait for the kiddos to get older, and, you know, before we put the house on the market, we're thinking, well, we have to do, you know, we have to finish the backyard, or these things, you know, what happens, say, well, before we could, you know, maybe put the house on the market, we've got to redo the deck, Ryan, and then I've got to do the backyard, and there's some things here inside, you know, I've got kiddos, I've got handprints, and what happens is not only we're looking for things to be done for the property, but then we're also looking at rates to drop. And while we're looking for rates to drop, we're also looking at prices. And the challenge on that is, as you know, as I said, I just had a birthday, and it seems like yesterday. And that wait becomes weeks, becomes months, becomes years. And it's kind of hard to believe that. So today we're going to discuss the financial cost of emotional costs and lifestyle cost of waiting before selling your home. We'll talk about this on the second half of Real Estate with Ryan. We'll be right back on a break. Stay with us.
When speed matters, every second counts.
Wow, that was fast.
In real estate, speed is an advantage.
In football, speed is crucial.
In softball, speed is game-changing.
If you want your home sold fast,
Trust Ryan Coleman and his team at Hometown Realty for fast results.
Thanks, guys. Go Big Orange.
Hometown Realty is East Tennessee's #1 real estate group and a proud sponsor of the Vols.
I'm Ryan Coleman with Hometown Realty. The real estate market's changing every day. You need to know your home's value in today's market. Text your home address to 290-2290 for an instant, no obligation home evaluation. That's 865-290-2290. And remember, when you're ready to sell, we have a guaranteed sale program to get you in your next home stress-free. Trust your hometown experts. We've helped thousands of people just like you. All right, we're back at it, Real Estate with Ryan. Thanks for staying tuned. Great show for you. We talked about the first half, buying a smaller home. Is it the trend? Well, we're seeing it across the country, new builders and things like that. Looking at the budget, looking at affordability, smaller footprints, smaller home plans are popular along with condos and things like that. So that's what we're chatting with the first segment in case you missed it. In the second half, we had a great show for you, talking about the hidden costs of waiting too long to make a housing decision. I think we've all talked about that a little bit. And it's all come into play. Of course, with the housing market, we want to be optimistic, right? Optimistic that the rates are going to be where we need to be and we can put it off, kind of procrastinate. So before I get too far into the show, we'll go to our vol update and then kind of carry this on. So we'll go drum roll, please. All right, so we got our vol update, 60-second vol update. As you know, if you had a chance to watch our Lady Vols, amazing season. Carla and the groups there of ladies that did an amazing job, and it was neat to see Carlin go out and pitch that last game there. And she had a tough out, but the team battled. You know, they had an amazing Texas team that not only beat us but ended up winning the whole thing. They were tough. So tough to see them lose, but what an amazing season, and just a really kind of it was great to watch. Little women's softball, and of course our men didn't end exactly what we wanted to see, but had an amazing season under new head coach, and they're progressing. They're moving forward. I was excited to seeing them on a close one, and excited to see them back next year. A little softball and baseball. As you know, what's right around the corner. It's hard to believe it's summer. It's football right around the corner in a matter of months. So think about it. August will be here in a matter of weeks. We got some more information. We got some more giveaways. We're going to give away tickets. So make sure you follow us all summer long. Hometown Realty, proud sponsor of the Vols. Go Big Orange. So there's our Vol update. A lot going on going into the summer. And understanding that this is going to be a big decision for you guys if you're moving. And understanding that moving, it's a big decision no matter what age you are. You know, if you're thinking about buying or selling, I don't care if you're young, moving from your first apartment. I don't care if you're, a senior. When you've been there 40-some years. We just moved some great seniors that were there 45 years. Surprisingly, we moved them, and there was no issue. There was no issue of. I was more emotionally attached to it than they were maybe, and I said, well, goodness gracious, you raised your kids here, and you lost your dad and your mother, and they said, nope, Ryan, we're ready for a new chapter. We've been wanting to move for years and just never did it. That's 45 years. Think about it. One of the biggest things is there's never going to be a perfect market. Whether you're buying, selling, if the rates are 2 or 3%, they're going like hotcakes. You remember that, right? Rates are moving 2 or 3%. We got 50 offers. Waive your inspection. If you have a home to sell, forget it. We won't even consider it. It makes it tough, right? And now it's just affordability. The biggest thing is that waiting too long where you say, well, I've got a home to sell, but you go out there and look and see what you're going to find. And it's, I've got less square footage. Maybe trending to say why that you're seeing less square footage is popular because that is what is more affordable right now. But the hidden cost of waiting for the perfect time, the rates, inventory, sometimes can be more expensive than the decision that you make. Sometimes we go based on just numbers, Ryan, but I talk to families every day that are moving and wait, and they say the same thing. And one of the biggest things is, Ryan, we need more inventory. I'm not finding what I'm looking for out there. Okay? Retirement's big. I'm going to wait till I retire. Kids, very important. In the same school district, trying to stay in the same school district, I'm going to wait for the kids to do that. And the problem is the economy and the challenge of the market just does not pause while we're waiting for those things. Jobs, those change, right? Families grow. We got grandbabies. Always talk about grandbabies. I like to brag on grandbabies. I don't have any, knock on wood. My daughter's 11, but when I get to that point, that still will be, I'm a grandpa. That may really sound if you're a grandpa, right, guys? But grandbabies are so important. And so many of my clients have grandbabies. And some of the reason I'm employed is because they're wanting to sell. And I always tell everybody, I had a great client that just the other day we met with. And one of the most important things, regardless of the housing market, and I think you probably heard me talk about it, is whether you're buying or selling, it really doesn't matter. But if you're having grandbabies and you want to be close to grandbabies, especially if it's your first grandbaby, most importantly, guys, you really don't have much to say. I can't tell you the amount of houses that we've been in. We walked them through, great conversations, beautiful house, and the husband's walking me through, and I said, "Hey, John, why are you selling? This is an amazing property." He said, "Yeah, I'm really not looking to sell, Ryan, but my wife is. It's important to be. It's her only daughter." And they've got grandbabies, and she just doesn't want to miss the moment. And that's life, right? That's how important is that? Grandbabies coming first, life. And so important that families grow, and it's important for you to be part of that time frame because we're all looking at our kiddos, our family, we're getting older, and time's just flying by. Parents age. It's an unfortunate part of getting older. It's not easy, but our parents are age. How are we going to handle that? Maybe, you're going into your later 70s and your 80s. We don't need 2 stories. We don't need it. We don't need a basement. So there's a time and season where we need to sell regardless if it's 6.5 or 6, right? There's always an opportunity in the housing market. Children move away. That'd be a day where if mine move away, I'm probably be boo-hooing. But my wife may be throwing a party. It's just opposite. Need to evolve. And so many things in the housing market make it not an easy answer, right? Not an easy answer to make that decision, to put it off. I say one of the biggest things you can do, and one of the financial costs of waiting, is procrastination, right? We all do it in our work, in our business. You say, hey, I've got to do something on that HVAC. I know it's at the end of its life, or maybe it's something on the roof. When we fix that, Ryan, then we can maybe talk about putting the house on the market. But 1 year, right, becomes 2. And 2 years becomes 5. And what a small repair at the time was a couple $1,000. Today's housing market, what used to be $2,000 is probably $10,000. And that's, so waiting another 5 years, that project, that labor, that cost multiplies. And the same applies to downsizing. Homeowners spend thousands of maintaining a space that they're just not using. Investors often, and this is probably to my investors, we have a bunch of property. I deal with a lot of investors that have investor property. And I think, when you deal in the multifamily or commercial space, that's a whole different animal. But those guys are always looking for the right deal. Our investors often want the perfect deal, right? How many properties have you sold or been involved where there's an investment sale, and the investor's looking for that perfect deal, but that perfect offer where it really makes sense, and they're like, hey, I got a really good deal, Ryan. But often, they wait or they lose or fear of, well, I paid too much. But then the next guy comes in, collects the rent, collects the tax advantages, and then waits for the gains to appreciate. Sometimes waiting feels safe, but always waiting could have a price tag. Not every housing decision is financial. Your lifestyle, a lot of things come into play in waiting. But in today's housing market, there's probably not a better time to be looking for houses than now. You know, as a buyer's opportunity, it's not a buyer's market, but there's more opportunity and flexibility than you have. I worked with a couple for a long time, almost 4 years. And during those 4 years, you know, every year he said, hey, I got some repairs, maintenance costs. We followed up with them for a long period of time. But it wasn't until at some point finally made a decision about the space, forget the mortgage rates, made a decision to move. And I had a chat with him not long ago. He said, Ryan, I wish I would have done this a couple of years ago. We're so happy with our house. We're happy where we're at. My wife's happy with her, you know, neighbors, close to friends and doctors and everything like that. Because I wish I would have done it a couple of years ago. And so I was glad to hear that. You know, glad to hear that. So obviously, everybody's listening. Ask yourself, does your current home, does it fit your needs now? If nothing changed in the next couple of years, where would you be? Does it make any changes? Are we making changes on fact or fear? Goodness gracious, it's not hard to do that with the housing market and watching the news. But I encourage you to look today. If you're thinking about buying or selling, or if that thought's there, maybe there's an opportunity to explore that. There's probably not a better time to do that in the housing market now as a buyer. And we always love to help you. If there's anything we can do, phone call away is 693-SOLD, easy number. Hope you've enjoyed this show. I love spending time with you. We'll see you back next weekend. Have an amazing weekend.